What's up guys, my name is Dayvon, and today I'm going to show you how to use the Galactavise compressor pedal with your bass. Let's do it. Okay, so before we jump into dialing it in, let's talk about what a compressor does. A compressor evens out our playing by taking the loud parts of our playing and bringing them down, and taking the quieter parts of our playing and bringing them up to match them better and create a consistent, even tone throughout our playing. For example, when doing techniques such as slap and pop, on the lower strings when you're slapping, it can be a lot louder and a lot more overbearing than the pops. Sometimes the pops can get lost when you're doing both together. So what a compressor will do is it will take the slaps and it will bring those down, and it will take those high-end pops and bring them up. So overall, it sounds a lot more consistent and even throughout the whole thing. Another example is when you're playing with a pick. A lot of times your downstrokes are a lot louder than your upstrokes. So a compressor will even that tone overall when you're doing both, to just make everything sound a lot more rounded out and put together. Also, doing such things as hammer-ons or pull-offs on the higher strings can come out a lot more clearly when you use a compressor than without it. So with that being said, let's jump over to our setup, and we're going to dial in our tone using the Galactavise. Let's do it. All right, so we are here at our setup. We're going to be dialing some stuff in. Today we're going to be using the FGN Mighty Jazz bass, and this is equipped with Seymour Duncans. That's going into our Galactavise pedal, and then that's going into the SansAmp preamp, and all of that is going into our interface. First things first, I kind of want to just have everything is set to 12 o'clock right now. I kind of want to show you what the bass sounds like without compressor when we turn the pedal on. So let's go ahead and do that. So that's without it on, and then let's go ahead and turn this bad boy on. Okay, so some of you might hear that notable difference of what happens when we turn the compressor on, and we're going to talk about how we're going to dial this in for what we're trying to achieve. Side note, I'm going to go in the order of how I personally dial in compressors with my bass. There's no right or wrong way, or no for sure place to start, but this is how I tend to like to do it. So we're going to go in that order. Right off the bat, I'm going to start with level, okay? So level is pretty much just a volume knob of how much volume we're getting out of the pedal. So if I turn it all the way down, it's going to be way quieter than if I turn it all the way up. It's like a huge difference, right? So we're going to go ahead and keep that at 12 o'clock for now. Some people like to use a compressor as a clean boost or an overall boost, which is a great way to use it. But we're going to keep it at 12 o'clock for now. So we're going to start with the mix knob. The mix knob is the blend between our compressed signal and our original signal. So I'm going to play a little bit with the mix knob all the way down, and then I'm going to play with it all the way up so you can kind of hear the notable difference. So let's turn it all the way down first. Let me do it this way. Okay, now let's turn it all the way up. Okay, so the reason I like starting with the mix knob is so I can hear exactly what I'm affecting. I like to start there and usually turn it up pretty high, so that way I can adjust all of the knobs over here, like attack, present, and sustain, according to that compressed signal. I don't like to have it all the way up because that's overall just squashing the whole thing. So I like to have a little bit of that blend, but not that much. So I'm going to turn it to about, let's say 3 o'clock, and we're going to keep it there. Let's take a listen first though. Yeah, that's usually right where I like it. So next, I'm going to head over to the sustain knob. Sustain is also known as the threshold. The best way of describing this knob without going too much into it is the ceiling. It's pretty much how much signal we're compressing down And then vice versa, the quiet notes, how much we're bringing up to kind of balance the overall tone. So with that being said, let's go ahead and see how that knob affects our overall sound. So let's go ahead, turn it all the way down and see what that sounds like. Okay, now let's turn it all the way up and see what it sounds like. This all depends on the type of music that you're playing, really, and how you also play the bass. But I like doing a lot of different slapping techniques, and usually on the lower end of the bass, when you're doing a pop technique, so you're doing the stuff on the higher, it's harder for those kind of notes, especially when you pull them off or hammer them on. Oops, sorry. For them to really come through when the sustain is all the way down or you don't have a compressor at all. So that's really what I try to achieve when I'm thinking about the sustain pedal, is overall just trying to balance my harsh notes or my low end notes that I'm really digging into with the higher stuff that I also do as well. So I'm going to start with it at 12 o'clock, and then I'm just going to start dialing it in until I pretty much like it, and then we'll go over that. Turn it back just a little bit. Yes. So the reason I turned it back a little bit, right now it's almost at 11, like in between 11 and 12. The reason I turned it back a little bit is because I personally don't like having the high notes ring out too much. I like it to just be really balanced between the two. And when it's cranked on the higher end, these high pops really start to sound very similar to the low end, and sometimes they overpower them because they're just a higher frequency. So I like to dial it back just a little bit to where that pop is really nice and spanky, and it matches the low end that I'm trying to achieve. So when those two are balanced, that's usually where I like to stop. Okay, so next we're going to move on to our attack knob. Our attack is how fast our compressor is reacting to our signal before it reaches the threshold or sustain. So I'm going to show you what that sounds like with the attack knob all the way to the left, and then we'll do it the other way around and have it all the way to the right and kind of hear what the difference is. Okay, so now let's turn the attack all the way up and see what that sounds like. Okay, so I didn't mean to laugh, but that's quite a difference. The attack, depending on how you're playing and what you're playing, is where you want to set it. So it really affects the dynamics. For instance, in this demo and what I'm trying to achieve with my slaps and my pops, and there's a lot of different dimensions to what I'm trying to do, I'm gonna dial that attack a little bit back because I want that dynamic to shine through my playing. If I was playing something that was a little bit more stable or consistent, and I just needed that power to cut through whatever I was also playing with, I would have that attack higher. So for instance, when I'm playing just very funky stuff, right now it's about at 11 o'clock, I would say, I have the attack there, or sometimes even a little bit lower. So that way, when I'm doing my slaps and my pops, I'm going to different levels of the neck. I'm playing some parts quieter than I would other parts and just adding a little bit more dimensions to what I'm trying to do. It allows those long notes, like you heard, to kind of swell and have that nice sustain, but also keep the pops consistent with what I'm trying to do. So I'll play around with that and show you what that sounds like, and then I will show you a scenario that you would use it for when you have the attack a little bit higher. If I wasn't switching between the different techniques that I was using between slap pop and then going into some slides, some finger picking, I would have the attack a little bit higher. For instance, if I was using a pick and I just wanted a steady tone for, soft rock or punk, sometimes pop, I would have it a little bit faster, so that way all of that just stays at one consistent tone and I'm just cutting through evenly. For instance, like this. That overall is what the attack knob does. So now I'm going to dial it into where I want it for what we're doing for this demo, and then we'll move on to the other knobs. So let me pull this back a little bit and start messing around with it. Right now it's about at 11 o'clock again. Okay, I'm gonna pull it down just a little bit more, so that way the pops aren't so in your face. That sounds really, really good to me. So we're gonna move on to the other knobs and see what they do as well. After the attack, we're gonna go to presence. This knob is really, really cool, especially on this pedal, because you'll notice when you're compressing the signal, you lose a lot of that brightness, that high end that really allows you to stick out whenever you're playing with a band or just in the mix in general. So it's really nice to have this knob to compensate for that, depending on how much compression you're using. So I'll show you what it sounds like with it all the way down, and then I'll show you what it sounds like with it all the way up. Right now, we're gonna turn it all the way to the left and we're gonna play some stuff, see how it sounds. Okay, now let's turn it all the way up. See how that sounds. So we get a little bit more of that nice high-end pick attack in there. And what I'm going to do for this demo is I'm going to have it somewhere in the middle. I'm going to put it around 1 o'clock. See how that sounds. So that way we're cutting through the mix, but we're not muffling our sound by having it all the way down and just having the compression come through. So let's see how that sounds, and I'm going to dial it in according to that. That actually sounds really, really good. 1 o'clock, the money spot. Yeah. So lastly, after all that's done, I like to go back to my mix knob and I like to bring back some of the original sound of the bass. This is the area that really changed compression for me, because I was in the boat where I'm sure some of you guys were in too, of turning it all the way up. I was like, I want that compression sound. I'm using compressor pedal. I just wanna be able to hear that overall sound. And I ended up squashing most of my signal. So as soon as I'd play with a band or try recording anything, it would just get so lost. So the really nice thing about the mix knob and blending is you can bring back that original sound of your bass for that really sweet spot, to have that compression signal to even out your playing, balance out everything with the compression, but you can still bring back some of that original bass signal back into the equation. So I'm gonna show you what it sounds like one more time with it all the way up, and then I'm gonna dial it in according to how I want it. So that is 100% compressed signal, and I'm going to dial that way back. Almost like, let's see, 11, in between 11 and 12 again. And we're just gonna slowly move it until we find that sweet spot between the original bass sound and our compressed sound. want just a little bit more of that bass sound. Bring it around in between 10 and 11. Sweet, and that sounds overall really, really good to me. Okay, so before we jump into the full mix, let's go ahead and see what it sounds like with the pedal off versus with the pedal on. So let's go ahead and turn it off and see what it sounds like. Okay, let's go ahead and turn the pedal on and see what it sounds like. Okay, so that sounds pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and see what it sounds like in a full mix. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I hope that you guys learned a little bit more about compression and how to use it with the bass. If you did enjoy the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. And comment down below what you'd like to see us use the compressor with next. Until next time, I'll see you guys then.